The crash was not loud at first. It was quiet, shaking, and full of warning lights. Evan Cole was thrown against his seat as the small exploration ship tore through the thick green clouds of the planet below. Alarms screamed in a language he did not need to understand. The engines were gone. The navigation was gone. The ship was dying. Evan grabbed the armrest and forced himself to breathe. He was trained for this. He was a human explorer, sent far from Earth to survey worlds marked as dangerous but unexplored. This planet had been listed as abandoned, quarantined long ago after unknown signals stopped coming. Now he knew why. The ship hit the ground like a wounded animal. Metal screamed. Fire flashed. Then everything went dark. When Evan woke up, the air was hot and heavy. His head hurt. The smell of smoke mixed with something sharp and alive, plants, soil, and strange pollen. He pushed himself up, coughing. The ship was broken in half. One wing burned slowly. The emergency beacon was dead. His scanner showed nothing useful, no friendly signals, no rescue paths. He was alone. Evan checked himself. Bruises, a cut on his arm, nothing fatal. He grabbed what he could, a survival pack, a small knife, a broken comm unit. His rifle was crushed under metal. The jungle around him was dense and silent. Too silent. He had taken only a few steps when the silence broke. Something moved fast. Before Evan could react, the ground beneath him exploded upward. Nets made of living fiber wrapped around his body, pulling him into the air. He shouted as he was slammed into a tree, hanging upside down. Shapes stepped out of the green. They were tall, powerful, and not human. Their skin was dark violet, patterned with pale lines that glowed faintly. Their eyes were large and silver, unblinking. They wore armor made of bone and metal, and their weapons were sharp, elegant, and terrifying. All of them were female. They stared at him like hunters staring at fresh prey. One of them spoke, her voice low and rough. Evan did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. Shock, hunger, rage. Hands grabbed him. The net was cut. He fell hard onto the forest floor. A boot pressed into his chest, knocking the air out of him. They bound his hands and dragged him through the jungle. Evan tried not to fight. Fighting would get him killed faster. Instead, he watched, listened, memorized. The tribe moved with discipline. This was not a random attack. They had traps, patrol routes, signals. They had been waiting. After a long march, the jungle opened into a massive settlement carved into stone and living trees. Platforms, bridges, and tall towers surrounded a central fire pit. Dozens, no, hundreds, of alien women stopped what they were doing and turned to stare. A murmur spread through the tribe. Some stepped back. Others leaned forward with open interest. Evan was thrown to his knees. An older alien stepped forward. She was taller than the rest, her armor marked with symbols and scars. Her eyes were sharp, ancient, and full of judgment. She spoke, and the entire settlement went silent. The word repeated again and again among the tribe. Male. Evan's translator flickered to life for just a second before dying completely, but he did not need it. He understood what they were saying by the way they looked at him. Fear, hunger, something darker. The elder circled him slowly, studying his face, his hands, his body. She reached out and touched his hair, pulling a strand between her fingers like she was testing fabric. She spoke again. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons. Evan's heart pounded. He did not know their language, but the meaning became clear when two warriors dragged a massive stone slab forward. Old stains marked its surface. Dark stains, not paint. The elder raised her hand. The tribe responded in unison, a low chant that made Evan's skin crawl. This was not curiosity. This was ritual. Later, much later, Evan learned the truth. The alien tribe had lived 105 years without a man. A long time ago, their males had died during a failed genetic experiment meant to strengthen their species. The mistake had nearly destroyed them. Crops failed. Birth rates collapsed. Chaos followed. They survived by creating a law, the hunger law. Any outsider male was considered dangerous imbalance, a threat to survival. They were not allowed to live. They were consumed. At that moment, Evan only knew that he was going to die. He was forced into a stone cage beneath the central platform. The bars were thick and alive, slowly tightening if touched. The floor was cold. Hours passed, maybe days, time lost meaning. Guards watched him constantly, their eyes never softened. Food was thrown to him once, a tasteless paste meant to keep him alive just long enough for the ritual. Evan sat with his back against the wall, breathing slowly. Panic would kill him. He knew that. He thought of Earth, of blue skies, of voices, of stupid little arguments and warm coffee and gravity that felt safe. He was not ready to be eaten by aliens who had not seen a man in over a century. On the second night, screams echoed through the settlement. Evan stood up, heart racing. The guards outside his cage reacted instantly, shouting and running toward the noise. A moment later, a young warrior was dragged past his cage, bleeding badly from her leg. Deep claw marks burned across her skin. A beast's roar echoed from the jungle. The guards hesitated. The injured warrior collapsed near Evan's cage, shaking, her silver eyes wide with pain. The others argued loudly. They were afraid. Evan pressed his face close to the bars and pointed at the wound, then at himself. He made a cutting motion, then pressed his hand flat, miming pressure. Help! The guards looked at him like he was insane. One raised her weapon. Evan raised both hands slowly and backed away, then tore a strip from his shirt and tied it around his own arm tightly, showing them. Pressure stops bleeding. The injured warrior cried out, her strength fading. Finally, one guard made a sharp decision. She opened the cage just enough to shove the wounded warrior inside, then slammed it shut again, weapon ready. Evan caught the warrior before she hit the floor. Her skin was hot. Her blood was dark and thick. Carefully, gently, Evan wrapped the cloth around her leg, tightening it until the bleeding slowed. He used a clean strip to bind the wound properly, working with focus and calm. The warrior stared at him in shock. He did not bite her, he did not attack her. He saved her. When the guards returned, they froze. The bleeding had stopped. The injured warrior was alive. Whispers spread fast. That night, Evan was not taken to the stone slab. The elder watched him from above, her eyes unreadable. For the first time in 105 years, the tribe hesitated, and Evan realized something important. They were not monsters, they were afraid, and fear, Evan knew, could be challenged. As the jungle roared beyond the settlement walls, Evan sat alone in his cage, exhausted but alive. The trial had begun, and humanity was about to be tested on a world that had forgotten what men were. Morning came slowly on the alien world. The light did not rise like on Earth. It spread sideways through the jungle, glowing green and gold as it passed through thick leaves and hanging vines. Strange birds cried in the distance. The settlement woke with low voices, footsteps, and the sound of metal and stone. Evan was still alive. That fact alone felt unreal. He sat inside the stone cage, his back against the wall, eyes half open. He had not slept much. Every sound made his muscles tighten. Every shadow felt dangerous. Across from him, the injured warrior sat quietly. Her leg was wrapped tightly with cloth from Evan's shirt and plant fibers the guards had added later. Her breathing was steady now. She watched Evan with open confusion. Her name, he would later learn, was Sorry. At that moment, she only knew that the human male, something her people feared more than beasts, had chosen to help her instead of harming her. Guards approached the cage. Their weapons were lowered, but their eyes were sharp. The elder appeared soon after, walking slowly, her presence silencing the area around her. She stopped in front of the cage and studied both Evan and Sorry. She spoke. Long sentences, heavy words. Sorry answered weakly, pointing at Evan, then at her leg. The elder's eyes narrowed. Evan stood up slowly and bowed his head slightly, keeping his hands visible. He did not know their customs, but he knew respect mattered in every culture. The elder looked at him for a long time. Then she gave an order. The cage opened. Evan's heart slammed against his ribs. Every instinct screamed danger. He stepped back, expecting a weapon, a strike, or death. Instead, guards grabbed his arms, not roughly but firmly, and pulled him out. He was not taken to the stone slab. He was taken to the center of the settlement. The tribe gathered again, but this time the feeling was different. Less hunger, more uncertainty. The elder raised her voice. Evan did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning when sorry was brought forward. She stood with help, lifted her injured leg, and spoke loudly to the crowd. She pointed at Evan again. Murmurs spread like fire. Some faces hardened, others softened. The elder raised her staff and slammed it against the ground. Silence returned. Evan was led to a small stone structure near the edge of the settlement. Inside was a single room, a flat surface for sleeping and water. A prison, but not an execution cell. Food was given to him, better food this time. Real protein, cooked roots, and clean water. Evan ate slowly, carefully. He did not trust this sudden change, but he needed strength. Over the next few days, Evan learned the truth piece by piece, not through words, through observation. He was watched constantly. Wherever he went, guards followed. But he was allowed to walk, to see, to exist. He noticed things. The tribe was advanced but scarred. Their technology mixed high-energy tools with ancient stonework. Many structures were old, cracked, repaired again and again. Children were few, very few. The women worked hard, too hard. Farming, defense, hunting, construction. Every role carried exhaustion. Evan began to understand. One night the elder came to him alone, accompanied by Sari, who acted as a bridge between them. Sari used symbols, drawings, and slow gestures. Evan responded with the same. It was painful and slow, but meaning formed. A long time ago, their species had been nearly destroyed by imbalance. Their males died because of a decision meant to improve survival. Instead, it caused collapse. They survived by cutting off all risk. No males, no outsiders. The hunger law was born not from cruelty but from fear. Evan felt a deep, heavy sadness settle in his chest. He pointed to himself, then to the tribe, then made a wide circle with his hands, together. The elder watched him carefully. She did not answer. Days passed. Then the beasts came again. This time it was worse. A massive creature broke through the jungle barrier during the night. It was tall, armored with bone plates, its mouth filled with rotating teeth. Alarms screamed across the settlement. Warriors rushed to the walls. Evan was locked inside his stone room. He could hear the battle, screams, metal, energy blasts. Then something heavy struck the wall near him, cracking stone. The creature was inside. Evan did not think. He acted. Using a broken tool he had seen earlier, he forced the door open and ran toward the noise. The beast tore through a food storage area, scattering guards. 2 warriors lay injured on the ground. Evan grabbed a fallen spear and shouted, not words, just sound. The beast turned toward him. Its eyes locked onto the human. It charged. Evan ran straight at it. At the last second, he dove aside and drove the spear into a joint between armor plates, using his full weight. The spear snapped, but it slowed the creature. Guards saw the opening. Energy fire struck the beast's exposed side. It roared and collapsed. Silence followed. Evan lay on the ground, breathing hard, covered in dust and blood not his. The tribe stared. This time there was no doubt. The human male had defended them. The elder approached slowly. She looked down at Evan. Then she bowed her head, not deeply, but enough. That night Evan was not locked away. He was given a seat near the fire. The hunger law was not broken, but it was no longer unquestioned. And for the first time in 105 years, the tribe began to imagine a future that did not end in fear. Evan stared into the flames, knowing one truth clearly. Surviving was no longer enough. Now he had to change everything. Fires burned longer than usual. Warriors stood in tight groups, speaking in low voices. The name given to Evan spread quietly from mouth to mouth, not as a title, not yet, but as a question. The human male. Evan sat near the central fire, his body aching, his hands still shaking from the fight. A shallow cut ran across his shoulder where the beast's claw had caught him. Sari knelt beside him and carefully cleaned the wound with warm liquid that smelled sharp and bitter. Evan clenched his jaw but did not pull away. Pain was familiar. Fear was not winning tonight. Around them, eyes watched, not with hunger anymore, with caution, with curiosity. The elder remained standing across the fire, her staff resting against the ground. She said nothing. Her silence carried more weight than any order. When the fire burned low, Evan was guided back to his stone room. The door was not sealed this time. A guard stood outside, but her weapon was lowered. Evan lay down and stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. He knew this fragile calm would not last. The hunger law had ruled this tribe for more than a century. One act of courage would not erase generations of fear. The next morning, Evan woke to voices arguing, not shouting, but close. He stepped outside slowly. Several warriors and craftworkers were gathered around a damaged energy unit, a large, old machine that powered part of the settlement's water system. It hissed and sparked weakly. The tribe's technology was advanced, but aging. Repairs had been layered on top of repairs for decades. Evan watched silently as they struggled. Tools slipped. The machine sputtered and shut down. Frustration spread. Water flow slowed. Evan stepped forward. Every conversation stopped. He pointed to the unit, then to himself. He mimed opening it, adjusting something small. A guard blocked him immediately, shaking her head sharply. The elder appeared behind them. She studied Evan, then the broken unit, then the worried faces of her people. Slowly, she nodded once. The guard stepped aside. Evan knelt beside the machine carefully, aware of every eye on him. He opened a side panel and immediately saw the problem. A power regulator had been patched incorrectly, causing energy loss and overheating. Simple, painfully simple. Using their tools, Evan rerouted the flow, stabilized the connection, and reinforced the weakened joint with local alloy. The machine hummed back to life, stronger than before. Water flowed freely again. The settlement went silent. Then voices rose, not angry, not afraid, amazed. Word spread quickly. After that, Evan was asked, not ordered, to help more often. He repaired broken lifts, reinforced walls weakened by jungle growth, improved traps so they caught predators without destroying resources. He did not command. He did not demand. He helped. Days turned into weeks. The tribe changed slowly, like stone warming under sunlight. Evan learned more of their language. Sari taught him patiently, often laughing when he struggled with certain sounds. Evan taught her human words in return. Simple ones: trust, choice, tomorrow. Children began to approach him, at first from a distance, then closer. They stared at his hands, his face, his hair. One brave child touched his arm and ran away squealing. Evan laughed softly, surprising himself, but not everyone accepted him. A group of warriors remained hostile. Led by a fierce captain marked with fresh scars, they watched Evan with cold eyes. To them, he was not proof of hope. He was a threat. One evening, the elder summoned Evan. She led him beyond the settlement walls, into an area forbidden to most. Ancient stone structures rose from the ground, half swallowed by vines and moss. Broken towers leaned like wounded giants. The ruins, the place where everything had gone wrong. Sari followed, silent. The elder stopped before a massive sealed door marked with warning symbols. She placed her hand against it and spoke quietly. Sari translated as best she could. This was where the experiment happened, where their males had been lost, where imbalance was born. The energy core inside still powered part of their world, but it was failing. If it collapsed completely, the land would poison itself. Crops would die. The tribe would not survive another generation. They had tried to fix it many times. They had failed every time. because the system required something their people feared: adaptation. The elder looked at Evan, not as a prisoner, as a last chance. That night the hostile warriors acted. As Evan returned to his quarters, they surrounded him in a narrow passage, weapons drawn, eyes hard. The captain stepped forward and spoke with sharp, angry words. Sari shouted from behind them, trying to stop it. The captain raised her weapon. Evan raised his hands. He did not fight. He did not run. He spoke slowly in broken words, using gestures when language failed. I will not take, I will not rule, I will not stay if I am poison. He pointed to the ruins, then to the children playing nearby, then to himself. I fix things or I leave. Silence fell. The captain's weapon trembled. Finally, the elder's voice cut through the night like stone breaking. The warriors stepped back. The choice was made. At dawn, Evan entered the ruins. The air inside was thick and cold. Old machines lined the walls, silent and cracked. The core chamber lay deep within, sealed behind ancient locks. Evan worked for hours, days, moving carefully, learning the system's strange logic. It was alien, but not impossible. The design was flawed not because it was wrong, but because it was rigid. It did not allow change. Evan rewrote pathways, introduced balance points, added safety margins. When the core finally stabilized, light filled the chamber. The ground stopped trembling. Life returned. When Evan emerged, exhausted and covered in dust, the tribe waited. The elder stepped forward and placed her staff at his feet. Not surrender, recognition. The hunger law did not fall that day, but it cracked wide enough for light to enter, and the galaxy had just taken another step toward remembering what humans did best. They stayed. They fixed. They refused to let fear decide the future. The jungle seemed calmer the next morning. Evan stood at the edge of the settlement, watching the early light spread through the trees. Birds he had never seen before called out, their cries echoing across the valley. The air smelled of damp earth and new growth. After everything that had happened, the world felt both familiar and strange. He had changed the core of the settlement's power system. He had faced the ruins and survived. Yet he knew the hardest trials were still ahead, not the beasts, not the hunger law, but the tribe itself. Fear ran deep, and habits died slowly. Sari appeared beside him, her expression cautious. She had become more open with him over the past weeks, showing small signs of trust. She handed him a cup of warm liquid. Evan accepted it silently, grateful for even this small kindness. They talk about you, she said softly in broken human. Some say you are cursed. Some blessed, some dangerous. Evan smiled faintly. I am just human, that is enough. Her eyes widened slightly at his words, as if he had said something impossible. The elder appeared then, stepping silently from the shadows. Her gaze was firm. Her voice carried the weight of centuries. She gestured toward the settlement. The tribe had called a council. Every warrior, every craft worker, even children who were old enough to understand stood in the open square. The elder motioned for Evan to step forward. Hesitantly, he obeyed. The square fell silent. Murmurs ran through the crowd, then vanished under the elder's commanding presence. All eyes turned toward him. The elder began to speak. Words he could not understand, but their meaning was clear from tone and gestures. She spoke of balance, survival, fear, and change. She spoke of the hunger law. She spoke of centuries of waiting. Evan understood the challenge immediately. He was not simply being judged for surviving or for fixing machines. He was being tested as a symbol. He had proven courage. He had proven skill. But could he prove understanding? Could he prove that humans did not arrive to conquer or destroy? That humans could be allies? He raised his hands, palms open, showing that he carried no weapons. Then he gestured to the ruins outside the settlement. He pointed to himself, then to the core, then to the people around him. He mimed healing, helping, fixing. The elder nodded slowly. A decision had been made. A trial would follow. Evan did not know what the trial would be, but he sensed it would be the final test of trust. That night, the settlement prepared for a ritual. Fires were lit high along the perimeter. Warriors gathered, weapons resting against their shoulders. Children were kept inside safe shelters, though some peeked nervously from windows carved into trees. Evan was led to the ruins again. This time he was not alone. Sari followed, holding his arm lightly. Several elders accompanied them, observing closely. Inside the ruins, the air was cooler, heavier. The machinery hummed faintly from the work Evan had done before, but it was fragile. Sparks occasionally flickered, and the stone walls seemed to vibrate with energy. At the center, a massive chamber opened before them. A long-forgotten energy generator lay dormant. The elders gestured for Evan to enter. The floor vibrated slightly, as if alive. He stepped forward carefully. The walls were lined with symbols, some glowing faintly. The air smelled of ozone and dust. He could feel the history of the place pressing down on him. Sari whispered from behind him. "Do not fail, they watch, they remember." Evan nodded. He could feel it, every action here mattered, not just to him but to the tribe, to their future. He knelt beside the generator. Broken circuits, old wires, corroded panels, and misaligned connectors, all of it spoke a language of neglect and fear. He had seen systems like this before back on Earth, and he knew what to do. Hours passed. Evan worked tirelessly. He rewired circuits, balanced energy flows, aligned conduits, and replaced components with what the tribe had available. Sweat dripped down his face, his hands cut and scraped on sharp metal edges. Suddenly, the chamber shuddered. Sparks flew across the floor. Evan froze. The energy reading spiked. The machine groaned as if resisting change. A roar echoed from deep inside the ruins. A secondary defense system had activated, a failsafe to prevent outsiders from tampering with the core. Stone panels shifted. A beam of energy shot across the chamber. Evan ducked, narrowly avoiding it. Sari called out, but her voice was swallowed by the noise. Evan realized he had to act quickly. He studied the energy flow. The system was reactive, not static. If he could channel the energy into the secondary conduit, he could stabilize it. Evan moved with precision, placing temporary stabilizers, rerouting currents with wires and panels. Sparks flew, flames licked the corners of the chamber, and the floor vibrated like it might crack at any moment. Finally, with a loud hum and a flash of light, the generator stabilized. Energy flowed smoothly. The machines in the settlement beyond the walls would continue without interruption. Water power, life preserved. Evan sank to the floor, exhausted. Sari knelt beside him, helping him to his feet. The elders approached, stepping over sparks and fallen panels. Their eyes were wide, cautious, but something else shone behind them: respect. The elder lifted her staff high. She spoke slowly and deliberately. Every warrior in the settlement could hear her. Evan could not understand her words, but the tone was clear: approval, recognition, acceptance. A murmur ran through the crowd outside as they felt the energy stabilizing. Sensors, if they existed for the tribe, would have confirmed what everyone was beginning to believe. The human male had not only survived, he had saved them. For the first time in over a century, the hunger law trembled. The tribe realized that fear could be challenged, that a human could be trusted, and that the world might not end with his arrival. That evening, as the settlement celebrated quietly, fires burned, laughter echoed, children played under watchful eyes, Evan walked alongside Sari. They spoke slowly, each word deliberate. "I am not a god," Evan said softly. "No," Sari replied, "but you are proof. Proof that courage could heal, that skill could build, that fear did not have to rule." Evan looked toward the jungle beyond the walls. The trees swayed gently in the wind, the sounds of life moving around him. He knew more dangers would come: creatures, nature, perhaps even other outsiders. But he also knew this: he would not face them alone. The tribe had begun to trust him. They had begun to see that humanity brought more than destruction. It brought hope. And as night settled, stars visible through breaks in the canopy, Evan realized something he had not felt in a long time. He was not just surviving, he was changing the future. Tomorrow he would begin teaching. Not weapons, not dominance, but cooperation, strategy, engineering, medicine, the things humans excelled at. And slowly, over time, the tribe would learn that strength did not only come from fear, it came from courage, from trust, from willing to act when others hesitated. Evan smiled faintly at the thought. For the first time in 105 years, the alien tribe dared to imagine a way where humans were not the end, but the beginning. And Evan Cole, the human who had arrived unexpectedly, would guide them toward it. The first light of dawn stretched across the alien jungle, painting the settlement in soft green and gold. For the first time in over a century, the air was calm. The animals moved without panic, the winds whispered through the trees, and the alien tribe stirred with a new energy, not fear but hope. Evan stepped outside his quarters, stretching his stiff muscles. His hands were still scratched and bruised from his time in the ruins, but the soreness was nothing compared to the tension he had carried for weeks. The tribe had seen him fight, heal, and save them, but proving trust to an entire people took more than action. It took time and persistence. Today, that persistence would be tested further. Sari met him at the edge of the central square, carrying a tray of water and fruits native to the jungle. She smiled faintly, a gesture that had become more common as days passed. "They wait," she said simply. "They watch. Some still doubt, but not many now." Evan nodded. "Then we begin." The elder had called a council for the entire tribe. Every warrior, craft worker, and even older children gathered around the central fire. They watched as Evan approached, standing tall despite the jungle heat and tension. For a moment, silence fell like a heavy cloak, every eye, silver and bright, fixed on him. The elder spoke first. Her words were strong, commanding, and carried the weight of generations. She gestured at Evan, then at the ruins, then at the settlement itself. The meaning was clear. This was a judgment, a final decision about trust, change, and the future. Evan raised his hands, open and visible, showing he bore no weapons. Then he mimed the work he had done in the ruins, pointing to broken machines, circuits, and energy flows. He gestured to himself, then to the tribe, and finally made a sweeping motion that included the children and the settlement itself. He was saying, without words, that his goal had always been to help, not to harm. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Some faces softened. Others remained guarded. The captain of the hostile warriors stepped forward, her weapon lowered but her eyes sharp. She wanted to challenge him, test him, see if this human male could truly be trusted. Evan met her gaze steadily. He did not flinch, did not raise a hand to defend himself. Instead, he pointed to the children playing nearby, then to the jungle beyond the walls. He mimed teaching, repairing, protecting. He pointed at himself, then crossed his hands over his heart. "I stay," he said with the gestures, "to help." For a tense moment, no one moved. Then the elder stepped forward, her staff tapping lightly against the ground. She gestured toward the children, then to Evan, then to the tribe as a whole. The murmurs quieted, and slowly, one by one, the warriors lowered their weapons. The captain blinked, then stepped back, her expression softening. Acceptance was spreading. The elder raised her staff high, a signal for the final trial. But this trial was not about combat or endurance. It was a test of cooperation. She led Evan, Sari, and several of the tribe's strongest warriors back to the ruins. The core chamber awaited, the energy humming faintly, balanced precariously from Evan's previous work. Inside, the chamber's walls glowed faintly, symbols lighting up as if recognizing his presence. The elder gestured toward the core. "Maintain, improve, protect," her tone seemed to command. Evan understood immediately. This was a challenge to demonstrate mastery, not just knowledge, but care for the tribe's lifeblood. He knelt beside the generator and examined each circuit and connection. Over the past weeks, He had learned the alien engineering system, blending technology with natural elements. He adjusted power conduits, balanced energy flows, and replaced corroded panels. Sparks flew occasionally, but he worked with steady hands, careful not to disrupt the delicate balance. The hostile captain hovered nearby, arms crossed. She watched every move, her body tense. Evan ignored her gaze, focused on the task. Every adjustment, every minor repair reflected his respect for the tribe and their way of life. Hours passed. Sweat dripped down his face. Muscles burned. But finally, with a low hum and a burst of light, the generator stabilized fully. Energy surged through the system smoothly, sending signals that the settlement's power grid was secure. Water flowed. Communication systems functioned. Life would continue. The tribe exhaled collectively. Relief and amazement rippled through them. The elder nodded approvingly, tapping her staff against the floor. Evan looked around. Smiles were appearing, small at first, then broader. Even the captain allowed a slight nod of respect. Sari placed a hand on his arm. "You have done it. They see." Evan nodded. "Not me alone. We all do this together." That night, a celebration unlike any in 105 years unfolded. Fires burned high. Music made from alien instruments filled the air. Children laughed and ran between adults. Warriors shared food and stories. Evan stood with Sari and the elder, observing quietly. The elder approached Evan, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then she handed him a staff, smaller than hers but marked with symbols of trust and protection. It was a symbol that he was no longer an outsider or prey. He was part of their world. Evan accepted it humbly, bowing slightly. He knew he carried a responsibility greater than himself. Not only had he survived, but he had reshaped the tribe's perception of humanity. Fear was no longer their master. Cooperation, courage, and trust now had a place. Over the following weeks, Evan taught the tribe what he could: engineering principles, simple medicine, and strategies for survival. He learned from them as well, studying their culture, their skills, and their understanding of the jungle. Slowly, humans and aliens began to work as one, a bridge forming between species that had never known each other. The captain who had once doubted him became a close ally, helping him train young warriors and craft workers. She admitted quietly that she had feared his presence, but now she saw the strength humans brought, not in force, but in wisdom and persistence. Sari remained by his side, guiding him through cultural nuances, translating words and showing gestures of trust. Evan realized that a bond had formed, not romantic, not forced, but one of mutual respect and understanding. The settlement thrived. Water flowed reliably. Crops grew stronger. Predators were kept at bay with clever traps designed by both humans and aliens. Life, which had been cautious and fearful for over a century, began to flourish again. One evening, Evan stood at the edge of the settlement, looking out over the jungle. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows. He reflected on how much had changed since his crash. The hunger law, once absolute, had cracked. The tribe had embraced cooperation and trust over fear. Humanity had proven its value without demanding control. The elder approached him quietly. She did not speak in words, only gestured. Evan understood. The tribe had made its choice. The past would no longer dictate the future. Evan looked at her, then at the settlement. Warriors were laughing, children were playing. Sari stood nearby, smiling faintly. The tribe had survived. They had learned. And in doing so, they had taught Evan something too. Courage was more than facing danger. Trust was more than words. Strength was not in domination, but in perseverance, in helping others, in refusing to allow fear to rule. The jungle around them hummed with life. Birds called. Leaves rustled, streams sparkled. The alien tribe, once ruled by fear and ancient laws, now faced the future with hope. Evan smiled. This was why humanity endured, Not because humans were invincible, but because they never stopped reaching, never stopped learning, and never stopped believing that change was possible. He turned to Sari. "We have work to do," he said. She nodded. Together, they walked back toward the settlement, toward a future neither species could have imagined 105 years ago. And for the first time, the alien world felt safe, not because danger had vanished, but because humanity had arrived. Because fear no longer ruled, because hope had been restored, and because humans, resilient, courageous, and patient, had reminded the galaxy that survival was only the beginning. From the jungle to the stars, the lesson spread silently. Where humans arrive, stagnation ends. And the alien tribe, once alone for over a century, was ready to thrive together.